Yes.
Have you ever been in a situation where people saw errors in your website? This was intentionally done, few errors in the content, just to get your attention on how people could possibly react when having content errors. Hi, my name is nicoknaepen. I'm a consultant at Logic Emotion. I've been developing for about 2 decades already, and 1 decade of that is for Drupal front and backend development. I've encountered numerous amount of requirements, and I always tend to tell people that it is possible to meet the requirements. I think this makes me an optimistic person. My current assignment is Technical Asset Manager at the Drupal Colruyt Group. This assignment is spanning for almost 2 years. What does this mean, Technical Asset Manager? My task is to work out strategy and vision, set up a roadmap for this, manage the technology, try to increase the performance of the developers, try to get them to another level, and also manage their workflows and efficiency in processes between different teams. It's a lot, but this job is something I just love to do. Now, enough about that. I just want to talk about how we present it, how we also present a business environment for previewing content. Now, of course, everything starts with requirements. Business also always has requirements, and a developer at the end needs to meet exactly the requirements that the business demanded. Just take a look at it. Business always wants to take a look into the future to preview content before they publish something on a live application. And webmasters, they want to also take preview in the future, but they also want to take a look back into time to see snapshots of examples of how they did things before. Sometimes it's just something seasonal that they want to see, how did we do it last year Christmas? And they have this example then. They want to avoid having incorrect images, files, avoid content errors caused possibly by an autocorrect. If you see the example on the left, it's a simple autocorrect issue. A son sends a text message with an autocorrect typo. He sends pregnant instead of perfect. And it was just the typo due to an autocorrect. His father reacts furious first, then he explains, "Sorry dad, it was a typo." And after that he is laughing about it. But you see something extra. There was something like with his laptop. His laptop was broke due to some action of his mother. So in this example you simply see what a content error can cause on your website. Now, what about content errors and typos? There are a few examples that I'm going to show you now. Some can be funny, like this fresh crab. Yeah, okay, you know what it is, but eventually this could be intentional, sometimes for marketing purposes. So maybe it was something intentional. Read and write English with exceptions? I doubt it. I think they meant exceptions, but okay. And I question if Brian is a man or a woman. So they can also be insulting, like B-face. I think you know what's supposed to be there. Do you want to exist? I don't know if you see it clear on the right top. And yeah, breaking news. Firefighters are ejaculating. Yeah, like this is something what has gotten into the news. It has a lot of impact. Also something that can be very dangerous. For us, I think it's very logically that you stop on this location, but some people are just so mistakenly wrong and they don't stop. They don't understand it. Or some people that don't know what's left or right. You don't see it completely, but it's supposed to be right there and it's pointing to left. It can also cost you your reputation. You can ruin your reputation on social media, like lose a job due to a typo. Yeah, should he write a book or left a book? I don't know what he was meaning there, but and how will you explain this to your next employee that you are talking about the gender split and its importance? Now, I've done some research, and most graphs, they point out that people comment on content errors. Commenting on content errors requires a lot of time, a lot of investment that you cannot calculate and predict before. This means time is budget, and it's not under control. Now, this is, for me, this is the most important one. It can certainly cost you money. In 2013, and this is the example of it, Macy's posted super buy advertising, and it was normally priced at $1,500. Now, the copywriter, he got an assignment, and the assignment was to change this to $479. Instead of $479, he placed $47. He forgot to enter the 9. Of course, this got published, and they had a lot of issues because they had to sell this at $47. Another example is the $500,000 eBay typo. This was about 155 years old, unopened bottle of Alsop's Arctic Ale. I don't know a lot of beer, but doing this research and reading about it, I saw that this was some of the rarest beers. This was listed on eBay, and the guy who then wanted to sell it misspelled the brand. He just missed one P. The result of this was that the auction received not the collectors that want to search this brand, because they search on the brand with the correct spelling, and it eventually received 2 orders, and the bidding was $304. Then eventually the seller saw this issue and he corrected it. Eventually there were like 175 bids, and the pricing was, the last bet was $500,000, so small difference. I can go on. There are a lot of examples about typos and the catastrophe and disaster and whatever, but the most important thing that I want to tell here is the awareness of the business impact of content that changes and is typed incorrectly. Okay, knowing the requirements, next question is, can we start coding? Wait, don't rush. We first need to see architecturally, need to see functionally, and then we can start coding. Of course, as we all know, developers, they always want to build a spaceship that can travel through time and improve it constantly. If we should have an unlimited amount of resources and an unlimited budget. But that does not always match the business requirements. And architects, especially in corporates, they require an architecture, and they have a snapshot of their digital ecosystem, and the application or the website that you want to introduce there should fit their system, their predefined setup. But there's never enough budget, almost never, for a perfect product. So for a conclusion, by bundling forces, bundling the developers, the architects, and the webmasters, and looking into the requirements, eventually we came to a conclusion that we were able to buy the most expensive basketball player, the most valuable player, but sorry, it was more like the minimal viable product. Just some president that can play hoops was enough. So therefore we foreseen budget for a minimal viable product. This was not the product vision, it was a minimal viable product. And this matched the initial budget, but it was not something that the developers wanted to build, so they wanted to go a level more. So, of course, they focused on the product vision. And this was eventually our Michael Jordan, where we wanted to focus on. But still something that was 100% matching with the requirements that were requested by business. And again, something more. Things like decrease unnecessary costs to add this, and workflows, improved workflows, those were the things that we wanted to embed. Eventually, the product vision became a preview of a website to validate before content publication, business requirement. Also for the webmasters to look back in time, business requirement. What we then saw was we needed some environment that had exact the same functionalities as a live website, such as a search, such as banners, such as campaign pages, etc. And we wanted to publish it at any time possible, even when you were asleep. So we didn't have to bother about when something got published, we needed to be available. We wanted it when we were asleep. So therefore, we did some research and we wanted to prove the return on invest. based on actual statistics known from the past. And therefore, we could please everyone, architects, developers, webmasters, and so forth. Now, how did we do that? We gathered the statistics of the past years, meaning the frequency of changes, content error occurrences, time they spent on typos, so the intervention done due to a typo. We then compared it with an as-is versus an to-be, and that gave business enough insights to give us a bigger budget. An initial budget was foreseen for the minimal viable product, and the return on invest gave us the possibility to raise this budget to a level higher. And the solution in between the minimal viable product and the most valuable player, or the product vision, was reached. So looking back into the image, what I showed you before, we would have a combination of Michael Jordan and President Obama, so it would be something like Michael Obama. I'm going to show you an example on how we calculated this. We first started with the as-is situation. This is a realistic situation, but I will show you the actual evaluation statistics after this. So we started with 10,000 page changes per year, which is not abnormal, just for one application, which takes us about an average of 5 minutes per page change. And it should be manually inputted on 2 environments, because they want to have some environment where they can validate, business can validate the content, and they want an environment where they can publish it on. This in total should take you 70 man days of resources per year, just one person. And the daily rate for a webmaster is around 350 euros, meaning that this will cost you 25,000 per year or 75,000 per 3 years, because we tried to look 3 years further, not 5 years, but 3 years further. Then we started comparing it with a to-be situation. Exact same amount of page changes per year, also 10K. Exact time needed for a page change. But we only input it on one environment. So this means half the resources required is 35 man days instead of 70 man days resources per year. And also the daily rate, same daily rate of 350 euros of a webmaster, which meant that it would cost us only 12,500. And this means a decrease in costs over 3 years for 37,000 euros. So knowing the extra budget, where we increased our time to spend on more product vision, it's time to take action. Requirements are fine-tuned, budget is available, we are ready. Next step is the architecture. We start with architecture just to avoid unnecessary costs. First we take a look at the architecture to see, is there some solution already available? Does it fit the application that we have, the website that we have ready there? Because sometimes it already can exist and you can just use it. It can be a software as a service solution, it can be something internal. Architectures, they guard about it on this. Now, just to show you something of the architecture, this is very abstract for maybe sometimes some people, but we have 2 environments here. It's a staging, content staging, and we have a content live environment. Just to give you some sense of how this is positioned. Now, the content staging website is eventually the origin of all the contents and the assets. By assets, I mean files, images, PDF, whatever. And by content, it can be a campaign, can be a banner, can be whatever. This site is an administrative application, which has exactly the same functionalities as a live site, as I said before, like a search and so on. And it also has a services where, which can be consumed for fetching the content and fetching the assets. And last but not least, we have the roles and user management, to give a webmaster permissions to add content or edit content, to give a business the possibility to review the content, and to give a content moderator the possibility to say, okay, it's approved, it's not approved. Then, next to that, we have the Content Live website, which fetches the content and the assets from the content staging website. This is a non-administrative website. Only for interventions it could be opened, but for the rest, nothing can be done here. It has exactly the same functionalities as a staging site, and is the site that is eventually exposed to the visitors. Here are no rules and users. So, okay, this is maybe an advantage, but it has better security. this application, because no roles and users. So it means less hacking possibilities. Knowing the requirements, knowing the architecture, we then start with the functionalities. Based on the requirements, and business needs to approve these functionalities in order to start with the development. Now, how does this work, the functionality? I'm just going to give you a review of the flow of how we did it. So the webmaster, he starts editing the content, adding or editing the content, the menus, the files, the images, and other assets. Then he prepares a content plan. Now this content plan is the plan that decides when the content should be published. There you can enter, do it at midnight, do it at 2 o'clock, do it at 3 o'clock, at midnight, no problem. He adds the content to this content plan, and then he puts, from the moment the content plan is ready, he puts the content plan in status review. So the next person needs to review it. He sends the link then to the reviewer or the content moderator, start reviewing it, and then they say, okay, for me it's approved. Content plan is ready to be published. From the moment it is ready to be published, it can be picked up by a cycle that runs and that executes code from the other application. So it's a periodic cycle. Let's say every hour it's going to check for it. It's going to check for, is there any content plan ready to publish? From the moment it gets some information, it starts pulling all the content, pulling all the assets. So, plan is available for publication, it's okay. We can start pulling everything. Then automatically your content is published on a live environment. And done. Actually, everything can be moved. Pages, products, banners, even menus, taxonomies, whatever that is in Drupal can be moved. Knowing the requirements, knowing architecture, knowing the functionalities, we start with the technology choice. Since the current website was already in Drupal, it was very obvious for us to make the solution in Drupal. So there the decision was quickly made. Now, how did we do that? With Drupal, our intention was to entity everything. Now, Drupal has a basic object. Drupal 7 is not 100% ready for it, but Drupal 8 is completely ready for it. And we needed to start from an object that had the same structure. And in Drupal, an object that has the same structure is an entity. It's that simple. You have the same preparation for bundling the information, for eventually pulling it to the other environment and placing it there. From a content staging to a content live. See, everything can be an entity. Now, we needed to do it in Drupal 7, but we also wanted to focus on Drupal 8, because once the architecture was defined, we knew, okay, and functionally it was defined, we knew, okay, we need to also focus on Drupal 8, because at some point we are going to make Drupal 8 applications. For Drupal 7, it works fine. There's no problem. We had done some custom coding in order to make everything an entity, like menus were an entity, there were some config modules for that, and so on. But Drupal 8, this works perfect. Drupal 8, everything is an entity. We don't need to bother about making it an entity, it's just an entity. What do you also need? You need a UUID, I mean the Universal Unique Identifier. This is the thing that makes it possible that your content will have exact the same ID on both environments. What you otherwise can have as a situation is that your ID will incrementally grow on one application, and in the other application it will leap behind. So we need something that matches both. And meaning this, to go back to this, meaning having a mismatch in IDs could be catastrophic. For an example, if you would have an ID 10 at one location and the other location it's also 10, it doesn't mean that it's the same content. So your content can be lost at one time. So therefore the thing or the UUID. Now I've also gathered some facts because after many hours of fun coding and making business happy and also the developers happy, we needed to do an evaluation. So we bundled some statistics, some facts and figures based on the situation from the moment we went live and how the solution is actually used. So for this I used the showcase of colruyt.be. So if you go and visit colruyt.be, this is the website which is actually using this application solution. We have there, from this moment, we started in April, so it's statistics of about half a year. Not taking extra seasonal pages into consideration, like for Christmas and Santa Claus, because I think there are a lot more page changes that are going to come around that period. And here we,
Easter.
yeah, and Easter, for example, because that we missed. We just missed that. So yeah.
Barbecue.
So we have about 31 content plans per week. This means approximately 1,500 content plans per year. 30% of these content plans are automated through content synchronization, which is done on the administrative application, the content staging application. 70% of that is manually administered content. This means in total we have 160 page changes per week and approximately 9,500 page changes per year. I know for sure that there are a lot of other applications, a lot of other websites that have a lot of more page changes per year. This is just some fact based on a solution I know. Now, this is used for simple pages, menus, bulk vitality changes, for seasonal changes and so forth, and also for corrections. Like when a content plan, they did a content plan and it was reviewed and there was still some mistake in the content or some mistake in the communication before it went into the website, they have to correct it also. So in this case we also have to consider that there's a content plan in between. It doesn't happen that often, corrections, but indeed it's also something that is part of this calculation. And all of a sudden, once the solution was there, every business is eager to use the same application because they see a lot of potential in it. So we are now focusing again on the product vision and trying to get some more budget on it. Now, here comes the drum roll. Credits go to. We have the Colruyt group members, Jeroen Goossens, Bert de La Fontaine, Tom Behetz and myself. These first three were backend developers, senior backend developers. Myself, I have done some effort in the architecture, in the return on invest. We are all active members in the community. And I also want to give credits to the business team and the webmasters for giving us the challenges and to meet the requirements and to get to the product vision. Also some small explanation about Colruyt Group. They have about 28,000 employees. Drupal is there's a small community of Drupal also within, because we have 6 Drupal backend developers and 6 front-end developers. So we're very actively busy in that. We also maintain about 20 applications, and it's about every kind of market. It's content marketing, some are e-commerce. We are still in search for front and back end developers, like every company, I think. And if you have some resources you can give me, just contact me. So, yeah, I got there very quick. I thought it was a bit longer, but does anyone have questions?
This is an uninformed question. I only know that there's a fairly new Drupal distribution that's meant for media companies, and that's all about content and publishing workflow.
Yeah.
How does that relate?
You mean, why didn't we use that solution?
I know that it exists, but
Yeah.
I don't know it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it has something similar to it.
Yeah, there are a few contributed modules already available, but we did do some proof of concept regarding these solutions already, like the deploy module, I think, was some concept module which was available, and you also have some distributions in Drupal. And these are indeed solutions, but having a distribution means that it's more difficult to have your solution based on the requirements of a business, because mostly a distribution is made for some kind of purpose, and trying to change that distribution is more difficult, because for media, indeed, it's a completely other context than for yeah. But we did some research on existing solutions.
There's a requirement that on the live site you cannot have roles and
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
live website is the finished thing, no website.
Yeah. That's also because the corporate there, they require to have a very strict policy regarding the security. And in any way, if a site is not applicable for authenticated user, then we need to block it. So, and in that form, it's no rules, no user management on that side. So that also means an increase of performance because there's less data to go through in your website. There are less modules required, and so you can strip your application in the least required possible.
How is your having this anonymous is pretty awesome for caching. How did you implement your caching rules in validation in regard to your content publishing platform?
Yeah, we do expire our content ourselves. So what we do is, from the moment we publish the content, we just give it some flag, expire. That's it. And then, because we work with Varnish, and having Varnish, the Varnish module, the expire module, makes it possible that we can just give the expire flag and it automatically gets expired. So we don't need to bother about that also. Yeah. Any other questions?
Regarding UUID, the hardest part to get synchronized is blocks. Since blocks are in Drupal 7, is pseudo entity thingy.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how I played around with it, and then UUID gave me a lot of headaches at that time. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And after that I didn't touch it. Do you have any tips for maintaining blocks on both sides at the same place?
Now I think at this point the UUID would be more mature for blocks. I didn't implement that solution yet because that was not part of that was a part of the product vision, but it was something in between which we had created. But I see some possibilities. Let's say if there's no contrib module, I don't think it's that much effort, because the only thing that you need is some field that is on the table of this block, on block table then, and there you need your UID. That's the only thing that you need. Eventually that's the only link you need to communicate from one to another. And I don't think it would be that big issue if you would need to implement it. But if you have any questions, I gave you my card, so then you can contact me. I'm pleased to help you in case you have something.
I have another one, which is actually not a real question, but an idea. If you have this fixed content structure, you could also combine that with a living style guide thing, and then for a new website increase your designs, and then use the actual content in order to showcase it. So the concept of content design and what is in print, etc. is separated and can be controlled.
You can upgrade the team of the content staging in order to have some preview already with live data. Indeed, that's something that I didn't think about. But
with the same model, you can also have the editors already type out their content without the website being finished.
That's something that we did think about already. Somebody had asked us this, to have even some complete reset of the application in case necessary. Like for instance, when you have some backup that goes wrong, or there's some hacking on the application that you need to do a quick pull everything situation. I didn't answer on that at that moment. But it's also because now the question is getting bigger, because all the businesses are on this case and like, we want it. So maybe something I need to think about then. Because there you also have other solutions, like just pull back a backup and pull back the files. If you have an infrastructure that handles this, okay, you can still go along with that. And then you don't need to do the effort in the development part. Because doing this in the development and pulling all the content, like for in a reset procedure, is a much more complexer part solution, and you rather want to go for the simple solution then. And another question?
No.
No? Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, then I want to thank you all for your attention.